A dog always plays with the baby in the garden. Until one night, the parents checked the camera, and what they saw changed everything. At first, it looked like a normal video. Laughter, sunlight, a loyal dog protecting a tiny child. But then, something moved behind the fence. A flash of red light, a shadow where no one should be. And what that camera caught next sent a chill through the parents' hearts. The dog wasn't just playing, he was protecting. Soon, strange things started happening. A broken gate, a note that wasn't there before, people pretending to help but hiding something darker. Someone was watching them. Someone wanted what they had. Now, a mother's love and a loyal dog are the only things standing between innocence and unthinkable danger. But who's really behind the fence? And when the truth comes out, will they be able to live with what they see? I'd love to know. Where are you watching from? Type it down below, and while you're here, subscribe so you'll always catch the next story. The house settled the way a sleeping child did. Soft, warm, and a little bit noisy. The dishwasher clicked. The baby monitor hummed. Wind moved through the hackberry tree and turned the backyard into a slow rolling sea of leaves. Leo Pike had one sock on and one sock off, a habit Wren Calloway found both endearing and maddening, and he perched on the edge of the sofa with the new camera app open on his phone. "Ready?" he asked. Wren nodded. Her hair was pulled into the kind of messy knot that only new mothers and nurses wore well. She had a mug in both hands like a small heater. She smiled without showing teeth. "Let's see our movie star." He cast the phone to the TV, and the screen woke to the garden. Evening light poured over the grass like honey. The tiny figure of their daughter sat in the shade of the ash tree, legs spread in a clumsy V, palms stamping the lawn, fascinated by the way blades sprang upright after she pressed them down. Beside her, Rufus did what he always did. He watched. The dog's coat caught gold from the sun, one ear notched, amber eyes sweeping the fence line, then the baby, then the sky. He breathed, and the chest rose. He flicked a fly away with one soft snap. He pressed his shoulder against the baby's thigh every so often, a touch as gentle as the wind, as if reminding himself she was there. "There he is," Wren whispered. She always whispered when she watched him, the way people did in church. Leo scrubbed forward in the timeline. The playback timestamp in the corner read 17:41:03. It had been this afternoon. He had installed the new cameras yesterday, replacing the 2 old ones with 4, 2 high under the eaves, one facing the back gate, and one nested near the hedge at ground level to cover blind spots. "This angle is the new one," he said. "It's tight, but we'll see around the—" The sound on the video popped. A cicada throbbed. Then the picture hiccuped once, like a heartbeat on a monitor, and returned steady. On screen, Rufus stopped scanning and sat up. Not stiff. Alert. The baby flapped her hands at a drifting leaf and barked a laugh. Rufus's eyes never left the far corner where their brick wall met the neighbor's cedar fence. "Is he hearing something?" Wren asked. Leo turned up the volume a little. The TV filled the room with a wash of yard sounds. The tiny huff of the dog, a crow somewhere, a bicycle chain clacking on the street beyond the wall. Nothing stood out. Leo glanced at his wife. The nurse had come back into her face. She leaned forward, pupils drawn to pinpoints, nostrils flaring at a smell only she could sense. She saw trouble before most people did. The picture caught the faintest tremor in the wall. Just a shiver. Then, without warning, one brick, 7 rows up near the top of the shared corner, tilted, scraped, and dropped. Rufus moved before gravity finished its work. He surged 2 feet across grass and slid his shoulder between falling and flesh. The brick clipped his rib and hit the ground with a flat thud, sending dust in a small puff. The baby jerked at the sound, arms springing out, her mouth rounded. No cry. Shock. Ren made a tiny noise, a mother's strangled sound that wasn't speech. Leo's own lungs forgot to work for a beat. He rewound. He played it again. The brick fell again. Rufus took the hit again. The dog checked the child with a quick nose. Then he did something that broke Ren's heart and built it back up in the same second. He leaned his whole body over the baby, not crushing, just covering. His head stayed up, angled at the wall. "Did the mortar give?" Leo asked. His contractor's mind sprinted to failure points. Heat, expansion, a squirrel burrowed, water infiltration. He had built that wall himself 4 years ago, before the baby. Before any of this. It wasn't perfect, but it was solid. Ren shook her head. "Bricks don't jump." On the TV, the baby patted the dog's shoulder, a small hand pressing into the thick fur. Rufus flicked his eyes to her, then back to the wall. He didn't tremble. He breathed like a runner just settling into a pace. Leo let the video roll. The sun slid a notch lower. Wind moved a thin, wavering ribbon of shade across the grass. The corners of the screen darkened. Then it came. A small red dot danced across the baby's blanket, a tiny bead of light that skittered and paused and skittered again. Ren went very still. "Leo," she said. "I see it." They had used laser pointers to tire Rufus out on rainy days, back when he was new to the house and restless, but this one didn't move like a game. It tracked across cloth, paused on the baby's sock, then zipped to Rufus's flank. The dog's skin twitched. His gaze didn't leave the corner. The dot vanished. A gloved hand appeared over the top of the cedar fence. Fingertips first, then the palm, then the wrist. The glove was black, tight. The hand moved with calm, practiced ease and tossed something. A small slab of meat arced dark against the sky and landed with a wet slap 2 feet from the baby's left heel. Rufus didn't break position. He didn't lunge. He didn't sniff. He lifted his lip just enough to show his teeth to the fence corner, then lowered his head and pressed closer to the child. "Pause it," Ren said. Leo froze the frame at the top of the toss. The TV caught that hand in the air, caught a faint white crescent near the base of the thumb, where glove stretched thinner over a scar. The picture had pixel edges when he zoomed, but the mark was there. He let the footage run to the end. The meat sat in the grass. Rufus didn't touch it. After another minute, Leo's mother had come out the back door to gather the baby for a bath, and the dog only moved when the baby moved, shadowing her small wobbles like a planet did its star. Leo stopped casting from the phone. The TV went black. The quiet in the living room felt like the whole house had leaned in and held its breath. "Someone threw that," Ren said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. He rubbed his jaw. "Yep. Someone pointed a laser at our child." He listened for his own heartbeat and found it too loud. "Yep. And Rufus saved her from a brick that shouldn't have fallen." He sighed through his nose. He didn't want to say yes to that, too. He didn't want to put the shape of this fear into the air where it would become a thing they had to carry. But the truth already stood in the room, like a stranger who refused to leave. That's what we saw. Ren stood. She set her mug down and forgot it. Her hands were empty, but she curled them like she was ready to lift something heavy. "We go to the sheriff tonight," she said. "We copy the footage to a drive. We bring the brick. We bag the meat with gloves. We don't touch anything with bare hands." Leo nodded. "I'll get the kits." They moved in parallel, a choreography established over years of his job sites and her night shifts. Wren gathered freezer bags, tongs, disposable gloves. Leo found the small evidence kit he kept, because jobs sometimes turned into disputes, and he had learned to keep his own documentation tidy. He brought out a clean plastic bin for the brick, a roll of painter's tape, and a black marker for labels. Wren cracked the back door, and Rufus trotted in from the kitchen, toenails tapping soft on tile. He pressed his head into Wren's thigh, then moved to Leo and did the same. Wren hooked a finger under his collar and felt him breathe. Slow. Solid. "You're a good boy," she said. "You're the best boy." Rufus licked her hand once and sat. They went into the garden side by side. The air outside had the summer smell of warm dirt and cut grass. The brick lay where it had landed, a rust-red block with a scab of mortar still on one edge. Wren crouched and slid the bin up against it, without touching the brick. Leo used 2 yardsticks to nudge it into the bin. He sealed the lid and labeled it. Wall brick. 1741. Back corner. The meat lay a few feet away. It looked wrong. Too pink. Too neat. Wren's stomach turned once, then steadied because queasiness had no place here. She slipped on a fresh pair of gloves, slid the tongs under the slab, and lowered it into a zip bag. She double-bagged. She wrote, "Meat, 1741, do not open." They stood beneath the wall and looked up. The gap where the brick had been was a missing tooth. Leo ran his fingers over the mortar joints near his eye level and felt for the telltale crumble of water damage. The joints held firm. He craned his neck and studied the top course. "It looks like a pry," he said. "See that hairline?" A thin, scored mark ran along the bed joint 3 bricks down from the missing one. "Somebody worked it loose ahead of time." He set his hands on the wall and leaned his forehead against cool brick. His voice came out low. "They used my work to hurt my kid." Wren put a hand between his shoulder blades. "No," she said. "They tried to use your work to hurt our kid. Your wall held for years. It took someone with a tool to make it fail." He let himself breathe into the wall for 2 long counts, and then stepped back. He took a photo from 6 angles. He turned to the cedar fence. Its top plank was smooth with age, a little silver at the edges. He could almost see the arc the gloved hand had traced. The neighbor's yard on the other side was quiet. The dark shapes of Bernice Vale's stable sat low against the horizon like big sleeping animals. A sodium light in the far pasture buzzed faintly, the sound of heat drinking bugs. "Bernice's people are out late," he said. Wren listened. She had learned to listen not just for sounds, but for silences. There was no radio murmuring from the stable aisle tonight, no clink of metal buckets. Just that sodium buzz and a lazy horse shifting weight with a hollow thud. "Or they want us to think no one is out," she said. They finished labeling and photographing. Back inside, Leo transferred the video to a thumb drive, then to a second for redundancy. He copied his photos and exported a log from the app. Wren wrote down times, light conditions, positions. She had done this in hospital incident reports. Facts, not feelings. She shook once when she wrote, "red dot," like a chill moved through her bones, and then her body steadied. While he waited for the files to progress, Leo scrolled the camera timeline further back. He checked 1710, 1658, 1643. Nothing strange. Wind and lawn, and the patient watchfulness of a dog. At 1739, 2 minutes before the brick, the ground-level camera picked up movement in the hedge, a flicker that might have been a leaf or might have been pressure from the other side. Then, at 1740, a sound. Leo turned the TV volume all the way up and replayed that 12-second stretch. It was faint, A faint, high two-tone pattern. 3 short trills, a stop, 2 longer ones. A whistle. Wren looked at him. He didn't have to explain. She had heard a whistle at night before, drifting over from the stables when the air was still. She had called it a horse call and thought nothing more of it. This whistle was different. Not a tune. A code. The hair on her arms lifted. "Save that clip separately," she said. He did. He layered the audio and added gain to the band where the whistle lived. It came through clear and thin, like something from the bottom of a bottle. Rufus's head turned in the video the moment the sound hit. The dog knew that cue. He didn't like it. They finished their copies. The thumb drives clicked into a small, hard case with a zipper. Leo zipped and put the case in his inside jacket pocket. Wren put the bagged meat into a small cooler with ice packs and taped the lid shut. She looked at the clock. It was just after 9. The sheriff's office would still be open. She texted Leo's mom to say they were stepping out. The baby was asleep and safe, and the monitor would be on her belt. "Do we tell Bernice?" Leo asked, hand already on his keys. Wren's yes came fast, then stopped at her lips. She didn't want to warn whoever had done this. She wanted their next move to land on someone who wouldn't smooth it over. "No," she said. "Not yet. We tell the law." They stood in the kitchen by the back door a second longer, not moving, the way people did when they sensed something watching them and didn't want to point at it. Rufus sat between them, head high, eyes switching from her to him and back, as if taking a last roll call. Wren knelt and took his face in both hands. The dog's fur was warm from the house. His breath smelled like kibble and yard. "You kept her safe," she said. She pressed her forehead to his and felt the weight and shape of him. "We'll keep you safe." Rufus closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were calm and amber and bottomless, like he knew things he couldn't tell and kept them gently anyway. They drove in quiet. The road to the sheriff's office ran along fields that had gone from green to black under night. Lights from the stables pooled in low bowls out in the dark. At the 4-way stop near the feed store, a single truck idled. The driver's profile turned, then looked away. Leo felt his stomach tighten with the old, useless wish to see an enemy's face and name it. He squeezed the wheel instead and kept going. Inside the sheriff's lobby, air conditioning hit cold and hard. Fluorescent lights washed everything pale. A young deputy at the desk looked up, took in their faces, their cooler, their bin, and stood. "Evening," he said. "How can we help?" Wren set the cooler on the counter. "We have a video," she said. "A brick fell toward our baby, a laser dot. A hand threw meat over our fence. We need to file a report, and we need someone to test this." She tapped the cooler lid. The deputy's eyebrows rose. "Yes, ma'am." He took in Leo's labeled bin, noticed the tape lines, the marker dates, and something in his posture shifted from casual to business. "One moment." He picked up a phone and called down the hall. "Sheriff, I think you'll want to come out here." A door opened. Sheriff Deke Holler, heavy-set with that old shoulder hitch, stepped into the light like a man who had seen too much to be impressed easily. He studied them for 2 beats, then the bin, then the cooler. He nodded once. "Let's get you in a room," he said. They followed him to an interview room with a table scarred by years of elbows and bad days. Leo set down the hard case and slid one thumb drive across. Wren put the cooler on the floor like she had brought something that could break if it fell. Rufus wasn't with them, but somehow the chair next to Wren felt warmer, as if he had stayed pressed to her leg all the way here. Holler plugged the drive in and watched the video without talking. His jaw tightened at the brick. He grunted softly at the laser dot. When the hand came over the fence, he leaned closer and froze the frame. "Back that up," he said. "Right there, that mark." He watched to the end and didn't say what they both could feel in the room. The shift from ordinary safety to something colder. He rubbed his temple. "You did right bringing this in tonight," he said. "We'll log the meet with the vet lab. We'll get that brick looked at. I want copies of your other camera angles, and I want you two to keep your routine steady but change small things. Lights, times you step out, sounds. Don't telegraph panic, and don't talk to your neighbors about this yet. Not until I've knocked on a few doors." Wren exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath again. "Thank you." Haller gave them a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Parents do a lot of things right every day nobody ever sees." He tapped the paused frame where Rufus covered the baby. "Looks like your dog did something right today, too." On their way out to the parking lot, the night felt different, like a field after lightning had struck somewhere you couldn't see. Leo unlocked the truck. Wren put a hand on the door but didn't get in yet. She looked out toward nothing and everything. The stables, the black line of trees, the long plank of sky laid low. "We're not alone with this anymore," she said. "No," Leo said. "We're not." They got in and shut the doors. The truck cab filled with their breath and the faint plastic smell of the evidence case. Leo started the engine. The headlights cut twin paths across the lot and caught a shape in the far corner. A cat, maybe, or a bag turning in the wind. It looked like a small thing until it flickered and was gone. He pulled out onto the road. Back home, lights burned in a few houses. On the other side, of the wall, the stable sat dark and perfect, the way a stage did before the actors stepped out. In their kitchen, the baby monitor glowed with a blue dot. On the little screen, their daughter lay star-fished and dreaming, mouth open, one hand curled on the blanket, as if holding the edge of a world. Rufus waited by the back door, tail thumping once, then twice. He didn't bark. He didn't ask anything. He watched them like he always did. They stood there a second and let themselves be watched, and something in that simple act settled the room. Wren locked the deadbolt and slid the chain. She checked the baby, then returned to the hallway where Leo stood with his sleep shirt still in his hand. He looked at her without blinking, like she would disappear if he did. She took his wrist and squeezed. "Tomorrow we patch the hole. Tomorrow we add another camera. We keep our eyes open." He nodded. Tomorrow. But tonight, while the house breathed and the dishwasher sighed and the wind made the hackberry sound like rain, their garden held on to the shape of a missing brick and the memory of a gloved hand, and on the far side of the cedar fence, a silence gathered itself like a crouch. Wren lay awake longer than she meant to, her palm resting on the baby's back, feeling the small lift and fall, counting. She pictured the red dot and felt her blood run cold again. She pictured Rufus taking the hit and felt something like heat, a stubborn flame build in her chest. When sleep finally came, it came with a promise she had not spoken out loud. The next time the fence threw a shadow, it would find her waiting. And somewhere, not far across the dark, someone else waited too, already planning a way to step over a line. Morning broke clean and ordinary, the kind of Colorado dawn that made it easy to believe nothing bad could happen under a sky that wide. Dew shimmered on the garden grass. The ash tree cast a long blue shadow that reached almost to the gate. From the kitchen window, Wren watched Rufus move through that shadow like a sentinel. Quiet, deliberate, already on duty before breakfast. Leo had barely slept. He sat at the table with a pad of graph paper, sketching the corner wall. Each line pressed too hard, pencil tip scratching until it snapped. He stared at the diagram as if a missing line might explain how someone had trespassed on their peace. "Sheriff said he'd swing by today," Wren reminded gently, pouring coffee. "He'll check the fence and the cameras." Leo grunted. "Yeah, he'll check, but he won't fix it." That edge in his voice, hurt disguised as anger, made her heart ache. She knew what that wall meant. He'd built it brick by brick the summer they bought the house, his first big job after starting his own business. It had stood straight through storms and snow, until someone decided to use it as a weapon. By mid-morning, Sheriff Holler's truck pulled up, dust curling behind the tires. He climbed, out slow, notebook in hand, eyes already scanning. Rufus stiffened by the fence but didn't bark. "Morning," Holler said. "Mind if I take a look?" "Please," Leo said. Holler walked the perimeter, stopping where the brick had fallen. He squatted and pressed a thumb into the mortar joint. "You're right," he said. "This didn't crumble. Somebody loosened it." Wren folded her arms. "And the hand that threw the meat?" "Still looking into that," Holler said. "No prints on the bag, no luck matching the glove scar, not yet, but we'll get there." He straightened. "You two keeping the footage backed up?" "2 copies," Leo said. "Good. Keep one off-site." Holler tipped his hat toward Rufus. "That dog's got instincts. Don't second-guess him." After the sheriff left, Wren opened the HOA app to report the damaged wall. Her message was careful, polite. Neighbor interference suspected. Request permission for emergency repair. She sent it to the HOA president, Bernice Vale. Bernice's reply came 10 minutes later. "Unauthorized modifications to the shared fence line are prohibited. HOA will review the issue next quarter. Please restrain your animal from the common area until compliance is verified." Wren read it twice, jaw tightening. She's calling Rufus a problem. Leo exhaled through his nose. She's protecting herself. From what? Evidence? She doesn't know we've got footage, he said quietly. Let's keep it that way. That afternoon, Wren went to her mother's to drop off the baby while Leo gathered supplies. When she returned, he was already outside, mixing mortar. His shirt stuck to his back in the sun. Rufus lay near the gate, head low but eyes alert. "Shouldn't we wait for the sheriff to take pictures?" she asked. "I took plenty," Leo said. "I can't sleep knowing that wall's got a hole big enough for a man to reach through." Wren held the baby monitor against her chest. "What if it happens again?" He didn't look up. "Then we'll be ready." She almost smiled. That was Leo's answer to everything. Fix it, fortify it, fight it quietly. By evening, the patch was done. The new brick looked slightly lighter, a clean wound sealed with fresh mortar. Wren grilled dinner while Leo adjusted the new sensor light he'd added over the gate. When dusk fell, it came on automatically, soft at first, then bright when motion flickered near the fence. Rufus's head jerked up. He growled, low and steady. Wren froze, spatula in hand. "Leo?" He moved to her side, eyes on the fence. "Probably a rabbit." The light blinked again. Rufus advanced 3 paces, body tight, tail rigid. Then, a sound. Faint. A high, short whistle that sliced through the still air, then stopped. Wren's heart hammered. "That's the same." "I know," Leo said. He turned on the camera feed from his phone. The motion sensor caught a flicker at the far edge of the frame, a sliver of movement beyond the fence. Then nothing. After dinner, Leo uploaded the clip and sent it to Holler with the caption, "He's back." He returned to the living room where Wren sat with the baby, rocking gently. "He's watching again," Leo said. "I know." She didn't look up. "But so are we." Rufus came to lie at her feet, pressing against her leg. The baby gurgled, reaching for his ear. Outside, the sensor light blinked once more, and then stayed on. The next morning began deceptively calm. Sunlight poured across the kitchen table, glinting off Wren's coffee mug. The baby cooed from her high chair, flinging cereal puffs with royal disregard. For a moment, Wren almost believed the worst was behind them. Then Leo came in from the garden, phone in hand, face drawn tight. "Motion alert," he said, "from last night. Look at this." The video showed the garden bathed in sensor light, empty at first. Then, movement. The glint of something small being dropped under the stroller parked near the back door. A smooth, practiced hand sliding away. "Pause it," Wren said. Leo froze the frame. A faint metallic reflection peeked from the stroller cushion. A tracking device, about the size of a coin. Her pulse spiked. "They're not watching from the fence anymore. They're in the yard." Leo ran a hand over his mouth. "We were asleep." Rufus barked once from the living room, deep and short, as if confirming it. They didn't touch the device until morning light filled the yard. Wren used gloves and tweezers, dropping it into a plastic evidence bag. Leo photographed every step. When he flipped the tiny tracker over, a faint serial code gleamed. He checked online databases. No results. That wasn't surprising. Professional trackers rarely left clean traces. He shut the laptop harder than he meant to. "They're planning something. They're mapping our schedule." Wren stood still, fingers white around her mug. "So every walk, every nap, they know." Leo nodded once. "Until now." He powered down the cameras, reformatted the security system, then reinstalled everything under a new encrypted account. The sense of violation lingered like smoke after a fire. Around noon, the doorbell rang. Dr. Lowell Crane stood on the porch, immaculate as ever, crisp shirt and practiced smile. Rufus growled low behind Wren's leg. "Morning," Crane said smoothly. "I heard about your incident. Bernice mentioned some vandalism? Thought I'd check in on the little one." Wren's spine stiffened. "She's fine. We're fine." Crane's eyes flicked to Rufus. "Good, because some neighbors are worried. That dog, large breed, unpredictable. Maybe it's safer if he's kept inside until the HOA review." Leo stepped into the doorway beside his wife. "He stays." Crane's smile faltered for half a second before returning. "Of course. Just a suggestion." Wren caught something in his tone, a faint undercurrent. Too smooth, too prepared. "We appreciate your concern," she said evenly, "but this house is protected." Crane inclined his head, eyes darting toward the fence before he left. After he was gone, Leo muttered, "Why does a pediatrician care about our dog?" Wren rubbed her arms. "Because he's not talking about the dog." That night, the house bristled with quiet alertness. Leo double-checked every window. Wren fed the baby, humming softly, but her voice trembled when she stopped. Rufus lay near the door, muscles taut even in rest. When they finally sat down, Leo opened his laptop to review the footage again. At the same timestamp as the tracker drop, faint background audio crackled, a sound pattern repeating beneath the wind. 3 short whistles. Pause. 2 long. The same code. Wren closed her eyes. "He's still signaling." Leo leaned back, staring at the dark screen. "We're not just being watched," he said quietly. "We're being studied." Outside, somewhere past the fence line, a single whistle echoed again. Soft, almost playful. Rufus rose instantly, low growl swelling into something primal. Wren grabbed the baby from her crib, heart pounding so hard it hurt. This time, Leo didn't reach for the phone. He reached for the baseball bat by the door. The night held its breath. The next morning dawned gray, the kind of overcast light that felt too quiet. Leo was already gone when Wren came downstairs, leaving a note on the counter. Taking the meat to Eleazar. Rufus sat by the back door, ears half up, tail still. He hadn't eaten his breakfast. Wren poured coffee but couldn't drink it. Every creak of the house sounded deliberate, as if the walls were listening. She turned the baby monitor louder and tried to busy herself, washing bottles, folding laundry, pretending not to watch the window every 3 minutes. Then Leo's truck rolled up the drive. He stepped out with Eleazar Brandt, a compact man with a scar across his jaw and eyes that looked like they'd already seen the whole day. "Morning, ma'am," he said with a nod. "You got yourself a good dog there." "He saved my baby," Wren said quietly. Eleazar crouched to ruffle Rufus's head. "He's trained," he said. "Not just smart, trained. This dog's seen service." Leo frowned. "You mean K9 trained?" Eleazar nodded. "Probably retired from search and rescue. Whoever dumped him in the shelter didn't want his record traced." He rose. "I ran a test on that meat. It's laced with ace-promazine, same sedative we used in the field. Just enough to knock a dog like him cold for 3 hours." The words hit Wren like a physical blow. "So they meant to take him out of the way." Eleazar's expression didn't change. "Or make him look dangerous when he woke up disoriented. Either way, it's no prank." Dr. Lyle Everhart, their veterinarian, met them later that morning at his small clinic. He confirmed Eleazar's results, showing the chemical breakdown on his screen. "This dosage could paralyze reflexes," he said grimly. "If Rufus had eaten it, he wouldn't have been able to bark, move, or breathe right." Wren rubbed her eyes. "Someone wanted him silent." Everhart nodded. "And that kind of sedative isn't easy to get without a prescription." Leo's jaw set. "Which means someone nearby has access." Everhart hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Dr. Crane orders it sometimes, for sedation and child animal therapy. He's one of the only ones in this county authorized to buy it in bulk." The room went still. Wren's heart thudded in her chest. "You're sure?" Everhart nodded. "Positive. But I didn't tell you that." That night, Leo installed a decoy plan. Muzzle, leash, cameras, all reset. They would pretend to let their guard down, let Rufus play outside again. Meanwhile, Eleazar watched from the truck with binoculars, waiting for any movement near the fence. For half an hour, nothing. Then a faint rustle. The same whistle. Rufus lifted his head, muscles coiling, but stayed seated as Leo commanded. Something slid under the fence, another slab of meat. Eleazar moved first, bounding from the truck to scoop it up with gloved hands. "Got it," he hissed. Within seconds, headlights swept across the fence line. The intruder had seen movement and bolted. Tires squealed down the gravel road behind Bernice Vale's pasture. Leo cursed under his breath. He was right there. Eleazar held the new bait up to the light. "Same drug," he muttered. "Same cut, same weight. Whoever's behind this has a system." Wren's voice cracked. "And a key to our timing." Leo turned toward her, realization dawning. The tracker. By midnight, the sheriff had the second piece of evidence bagged. Haller studied it under fluorescent light, lips tight. "They're escalating," he said. "This isn't just harassment anymore. They're prepping for something." Wren gripped the table edge. "Sheriff, you have to do something. My baby—" "We are doing something," Haller said, steady but serious. "But if they've got access to veterinary supplies and your property schedule, that means inside help. I want you to act normal. Go about your day. Let them think you're still in the dark." Wren almost laughed. "You want us to be bait?" "Not bait," Haller said. "Proof." Leo looked at Wren, torn. "We've come this far," he said softly. "We can't back down now." Rufus pressed his head against Wren's thigh, as if sensing her doubt. She looked down at him and nodded once. "All right," she said. "We'll give them what they want, until they give themselves away." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, and somewhere beyond the cedar fence, a shadow moved, listening. By Thursday morning, exhaustion clung to Wren and Leo like smoke after a fire. Neither of them had slept properly since the second poisoned bait. Rufus stayed close, refusing to leave the baby's side. It should have been comforting, but instead it made the silence heavier, like even the dog knew something worse was coming. The knock came just after breakfast. Sharp. Official. Wren opened the door to find two strangers on the porch, a woman in a pressed navy blazer with a clipboard and a man with a badge clipped to his belt. Behind them, a white van idled in the driveway with Child Protective Services printed across the side. "Mrs. Pike?" the woman asked briskly. "We received an anonymous report regarding possible safety concerns for your child." For a heartbeat, Wren couldn't move. "What concerns?" "Allegations of hazardous conditions and an aggressive animal on the property," the woman read from her form. "We'll need to take a quick look inside." Leo appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a rag. "You've got to be kidding me." The male agent's tone was polite but firm. "Sir, we just need to verify that everything's okay. It's routine." Rufus stood between them, silent, gaze flicking from one official to the other. Wren's pulse drummed in her throat. She could almost hear Bernice Vale's syrupy voice behind this. Rules are rules. They let the officials in. The inspection was methodical, detached. Crib secure, outlets covered, food fresh, no visible hazards. But every question landed like an accusation. "Is the dog ever left unattended with the baby? Does he bark aggressively? Has he ever shown signs of agitation?" Wren's answers came steady but tight. "He protects. He's gentle. He saved her life." The woman jotted notes, unreadable. When they left, she handed over a yellow slip. "We'll close the report once our supervisor reviews the footage," she said. "You'll get a call." As the van pulled away, Leo tore the slip in half. "Anonymous complaint, my foot." 2 hours later, Animal Control arrived. This time there was no polite introduction. "We have a formal order for temporary impoundment pending aggression review," the officer said, holding a printed report. "We've received multiple complaints that your dog attacked a neighbor's livestock." Leo's voice cracked in disbelief. "That's impossible. He hasn't left this yard." The officer didn't flinch. "We have photos of bite marks on a foal belonging to Ms. Vale." Wren's stomach turned. "She staged it," she whispered. "I'm sorry," the officer said softly. "He'll be returned once cleared." Wren dropped to her knees and took Rufus's head in her hands. He pressed his forehead against hers, tail tucked, as if sensing something irreversible. "Please don't let them take him," she begged Leo. Leo's jaw trembled, but he knew what resisting would look like on paper. "We'll get him back," he said hoarsely. Rufus didn't fight when they led him away. He only looked back once, eyes calm, trusting, as the truck door shut behind him. The house felt wrong without him. Wren paced the hallway, unable to stop listening for nails on tile. The baby fussed, restless. Leo sat at the kitchen table, staring at the phone. "I've left 3 messages for Holler," he said. "No answer yet." When he finally called back, the sheriff's voice was grim. "I just saw the report. I'll talk to Animal Control myself. Don't panic. They'll have to test for sedatives. If Rufus comes back clean, he's clear." Wren swallowed. "And if they don't test him? Then I'll make sure they do." Holler's voice softened. "Hang tight, Wren. We'll fix this." But when the line went dead, the silence pressed in again. At dusk, Wren stood by the garden fence, staring at Bernice's manicured pastures. A single stable light glowed, yellow against the dark. The rhythmic click of a whip echoed faintly. then stopped. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Dogs can be dangerous, so can mothers who ignore warnings. Wren's hands went cold. She showed Leo the screen. He clenched his fists. "We're filing charges." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. Another message. No words this time. Just a still image. Their backyard, taken from behind the fence. The baby's stroller sat in the frame. Wren felt her knees give out. Leo caught her, pulling her close. "She's not going to break us," he said fiercely. "Not now. Not ever." But in his eyes, she saw something darker. Fear he couldn't hide anymore. That night they slept in shifts. Wren on the nursery floor, Leo on the couch with the baby monitor glowing beside him. Every time the wind touched the cedar fence, it sounded like footsteps. Just before dawn, the phone buzzed again. Another photo, this time of Rufus, sitting alone in the impound cage. The caption read, "You can still do the right thing." Wren gripped the phone so hard it shook. "She's inside the system," she whispered. "She has to be." Leo didn't argue. He only said, "Then we go around it." He picked up his keys. "We're getting him out." The house had never felt so empty. Rufus's absence changed everything. The silence, the rhythm, even the air. Every sound seemed sharper, every creak suspicious. Wren caught herself turning her head at phantom footsteps, expecting a soft thump of paws that never came. Leo's patience, stretched thin as wire, finally snapped. "We're not waiting for Holler to fix this," he said that evening, pacing the kitchen. "We find out who's behind this ourselves." Wren frowned. "How, Leo? They're inside every system we turn to. CPS, animal control, even the HOA." "Then we go off the grid," he said. "Manual. Cameras disconnected from Wi-Fi, local backup only. They can't hack what they can't reach." It made sense, and that was what scared her. The way he was starting to think like the people chasing them. Later, when the baby was asleep, Wren stepped out to the porch. The moon hung pale and wide above Bernice Vale's dark stables. One yellow lamp burned low, humming faintly. Wind pushed through the cedar fence, bringing the smell of hay and something metallic, like blood and iron. Then she heard it again. The whistle. 3 short bursts, too long. Not loud, but deliberate. The same coded pattern from the footage. She froze. Every muscle in her body turned to stone. Then Rufus's absence hit like a physical blow. No warning growl, no movement to block the threat. Just her, standing alone, the baby sleeping 20 feet behind her. "Leo," she hissed. He came out fast, barefoot, holding a flashlight like a weapon. "What is it?" "The whistle," she whispered. "It's here." He swung the light toward the fence. For a second, nothing but the weave of cedar and moonlight. Then movement, just enough to see a figure slip out of sight near the corner where their property met Bernice's pasture. Leo started forward. Wren caught his wrist. "Don't," she said. "That's what they want." He hesitated, breathing hard. Then the light blinked out. Just a pop, sudden and dark. The garden went black. The baby monitor crackled inside the house. They ran in. The monitor's screen glowed white noise. No sound, no signal. Panic flared like fire in Wren's chest. She sprinted to the nursery. The baby slept soundly, chest rising and falling. Relief came so sudden it made her knees weak. Behind her, Leo reset the monitor, scanning for interference. "It wasn't random," he muttered. "Someone jammed the feed." Wren clutched the crib rail. "They wanted us outside." Leo looked up sharply. "To draw us away from her." The implication hung between them, thick and heavy. The next morning, Wren called Holler again. He arrived before noon, his face lined deeper than usual. He listened to the whistle recording, the interference logs, the timing. pattern's too precise to be kids," he said. "I'll talk to Vale, quietly." "She's behind this," Wren said flatly. "You know it. Every piece points her way." "I know what it looks like," Haller said, "but I need more than looks. If I accuse her without proof, she'll sue the county and win." Leo slammed his fist on the table. "And what do we do, meanwhile? Wait until they climb the fence again?" Haller's voice hardened. "No, you do exactly what you've been doing. Document everything. Don't take the bait." When he left, the house felt smaller, like walls pressing in. That evening, Leo checked the old culvert that ran behind the hedge line. He crawled halfway inside with a flashlight. The beam caught drag marks along the dirt, fresh ones. Someone had been moving through it. He backed out, shaking. "They've got a path straight into our yard." Wren's breath hitched. "Then we block it. Tonight." He nodded, already pulling materials from his truck. Cement mix, metal grating, rebar. As he worked, she stood guard with the flashlight. Every strike of the trowel echoed through the culvert like a heartbeat. When the last patch sealed, Leo sat back on his heels, covered in dust. "No more tunnels," he said. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to believe him. Near midnight, her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. One message. "Whistle won't work if the dog can't hear it." Wren's blood ran cold. She showed Leo. His jaw clenched so tight the muscle twitched. "They know he's impounded," he said. "They know everything." She stared at the glowing screen, heart hammering. "Then it's not just Bernice," she whispered. "Someone else is feeding her information." Leo's voice dropped to a whisper. "Crane." Neither said anything after that. The word hung in the dark like a verdict. Rain drifted in thin veils across the afternoon, soft enough to blur the view of Bernice Vale's pastures into a watercolor. Wren sat at the kitchen table with the thumb drive plugged into Leo's laptop, the baby asleep in her crib, the monitor's tiny green light steady as a heartbeat. Leo stood behind her chair, one hand on the backrest, the other braced on the table. The house smelled like coffee gone cold and wet earth through a cracked window. Eliezer Brandt arrived without ceremony. He stepped in, shook rain from his jacket, and laid a slim manila folder on the table like it weighed a ton. "I found something," he said. Leo's fingers tightened on the chair. "Tell me it's enough." "It's the middle," Eliezer replied. "Not the end, but it changes the shape of what we're looking at." He opened the folder. Inside were 3 printed screenshots, a photocopy of a grant application, and a page of notes in his precise block handwriting. Wren's eyes snagged on the heading stamped across the grant. Crane Family Services Foundation, Maternal Assistance Program. Eliezer tapped the page. "Crane runs this charity as a funnel. Prenatal care, adoption counseling, legal liaison. On paper, it's clean. But I tracked a set of sealed case numbers that moved through his office around the time your daughter was born." Wren's breath snagged. "How?" "Public filings leave footprints, even when names are redacted." He slid over a second page, an extract of a court docket with black bars over names and a date that made Wren's chest tighten. This case passed through Crane's foundation, then through an affiliated law office. Adoption finalized. Records sealed. That's not unusual. He took a beat, eyes steady. What is unusual is the donor list behind this foundation. He turned over the final screenshot. It showed a small block of names associated with a private donor account. One name was familiar even through its careful anonymity. V.E. Vale Family Trust. Leo exhaled through his nose. "Bernice. Her late husband's trust," Eliezer said. "Recurring donations for 5 years. Heavy spikes around 2 specific months. One when your daughter's adoption was finalized, and one 6 months before that when another internal memo referenced Family priority. Wren stared at the ink until the letters swam. Family priority, she repeated, tasting the sourness of the phrase. Whose family? Eliezer didn't soften it. Bernice's. He placed the third page down. It was a photo, grainy, old, of a young man in a riding jacket standing beside Bernice in front of the stables. Same blue eyes, same hard chin. The caption Eliezer had scrawled beneath it read, Vaughn Vale, deceased, 28. Her son, Eliezer said, died 2 years ago in a pasture accident. That much is public. What isn't public is that he fathered a child out of state. I can't name the mother. I can't prove the link on paper. But the timing, the trust spikes, Crane's family priority memo, it all points one direction. Wren felt cold slip into her bones. She could hear the baby breathing on the monitor, small and steady, and for a moment she wanted to scoop her up and run. Run where, she didn't know. Just away from the weight of the word that sat between the three of them like a trap. Claim. Leo squeezed the chair so hard the wood creaked. Say it plain, Eliezer. They don't want your dog gone, Eliezer said. They want your child, and they're building a path to take her under color of legitimacy. First step, paint Rufus as dangerous. Second, brand you unstable through CPS. Third, establish a biological tie through Crane's network and file an emergency guardianship petition. Wren remembered Bernice's text, the oily certainty in the line, you can still do the right thing, and the way her fingers had gone numb. She heard, too, the code on the whistle, the meat by the blanket, the gap in the wall. Every act suddenly had a purpose, a logic so cold it felt mechanical. How close are they? Leo asked. Is there any filing we don't know about? Nothing in the court system yet, Eliezer said. But if they move, it will be fast. They'll file ex parte to keep you from responding. If Crane signs off on any assessment, it could give them a paper trail to wave around. Wren swallowed. Her throat felt like sand. We adopted legally, she said. We followed every regulation. How can they… They can't undo what's done, Eliezer said, but they can create enough smoke to force a hearing. Drag you into a room before a tired judge with a stack of affidavits and a polished story about concern for the child's welfare. If they catch the right minute with the wrong judge, you spend 2 weeks proving a negative while your daughter sleeps somewhere else. A tremor ran through Wren's body, small and furious. Leo moved behind her and set a steady hand on her shoulder. It anchored her, the way it had on long nights with colicky cries, and the way it did now, facing this. What do we have? Leo said. What can we put in their faces that they can't explain away? More than they think, Eliezer said. He pointed to the laptop. You have the wall footage, the whistle, the tracker, the 2 sedative baits. We can build a timeline with gaps that only make sense if the same people show up across different systems. He flipped to his notes. We connect the dots. HOA notices keyed to the same days as CPS calls and animal control complaints. Veterinary access to ACE promazine through Crane's ordering privileges. Donor spikes to the Vale Trust coinciding with adoption activity. It's an inference chain, but it's tight. We need a name, Leo said. A face, something human to make the judge feel what we feel. Eliezer's mouth flattened. We'll get one. But first you should see this. He produced a small USB recorder and pressed play. A thin, reedy sound filled the room. 3 short whistles. Pause. 2 long. He let it run twice, and then clicked off. I walked the property line at 2 a.m., he said. That pattern came from the corner near the culvert. Your patch job is holding, but the echo carried into Bernice's rear pasture. Someone was standing out there watching your house and testing whether your dog would respond. He's impounded, Wren said. They knew he wouldn't respond. Which means the whistle wasn't to control him, Eliezer said. It was to test your vigilance. You passed. Wren sat back and stared at the rain-blurred fence. For a strange second, a calm she didn't trust slid through her, a clarity born not of hope, but of direction. "Okay," she said quietly. "So we stop chasing shadows. We build the wall of truth higher than theirs." Leo nodded once, jaw set. "We loop Haller in." Eliezer raised a palm. "We do, but not with guesses. With a package he can walk into a judge's chambers and drop on the desk." He outlined it in the crisp cadence of a man who had done this in other lives. A binder with tabs, evidence, video, audio, whistle, forensic, sedative, infrastructure, culvert, admin, HOA, ICPS, animal control timelines, and a final section labeled Motive, Vale Crane Link. Every claim would sit beside proof or a sworn statement, never alone. "We'll need Dr. Everhart," Wren said. "He can testify about the sedative, the dosage, the danger." "I'll ask," Eliezer said. "He'll do it." "And Haller," Leo added. "He can speak to the culvert access and the pattern of false complaints." "He will," Eliezer said. "He hates being used." The baby monitor crackled with a soft sigh. Wren glanced at the screen and then at the window where water threaded down the glass. In the reflection, she saw Leo's face, tired, implacable, and Eliezer's, still and focused. She saw her own, paler than she liked, eyes lit with something that hadn't been there a week ago, a hard, simple flame. "What about Crane?" she asked. "We can't accuse him without evidence." "We don't accuse," Eliezer said. "We place facts. He orders Ace Promazine. He runs the foundation that handled your case. He consulted on pediatric follow-up schedules for families in this zip code. He visited you uninvited and suggested rehoming your dog. A judge doesn't need an accusation. A judge needs the straight line those facts draw." Silence settled. Outside, the rain slackened to a fine mist. The world looked sharper after it. Leo pulled a legal pad toward him and started listing tasks in neat block letters. Wren texted Sheriff Haller. "Need a meeting. Have material that changes scope." Within a minute, a reply popped up. "My office. 1 hour. Bring everything." They packed like people late for a train. Drives, photos, bagged tracker, copies of the HOA emails, timestamps, the printouts Eliezer had brought. Leo snapped the rings on a binder and fed in the tabs Eliezer labeled. Wren added a page at the front in her clean nurse's script. Statement of facts, followed by bullet points in plain language anyone could follow. Before they left, Wren stood over the crib. The baby slept with her fists uncurling and her mouth open, one soft breath at a time. Wren touched a tiny knuckle with her fingernail and felt the fierce ache that lived now as constant as her pulse. She looked up and found Leo watching her. He slid an arm around her waist. For a second, they let their foreheads touch. "We go in steady," he said. "Not angry." "I'm both," she said. "But I'll be steady first." They drove through streets rinsed silver by rain, past the feed store and the four-way stop where the truck had idled that other night. Wren scanned faces without turning her head. Habit now, and tried not to imagine Crane's polished smile or Bernice's bright, brittle eyes. The courthouse square sat ahead, low and brick and ordinary looking, like it had all the time in the world to decide other people's lives. Sheriff Haller met them at the door to his office and ushered them into the same interview room as before. He listened without interruption while Eleazar laid out the chain. He watched the video again, the laser and the meat and the thin crescent scar on the gloved hand. He listened to the whistle recording, eyes half closed as if tuning a stubborn radio. He turned the donor spreadsheet around and stared at the block with the Vale Trust for a long, still count of 5. When they finished, he closed the folder and set both hands flat on it. "Okay," he said. "Now we're not chasing shadows. Relief hit Wren so hard she had to sit back. It wasn't joy. It was the feeling of a floor underfoot after days of falling. Holler looked at Leo. "I'll knock on doors. Quiet at first, then louder. I'll get a judge to freeze any ex parte move and to order protective oversight. But I need one more thing to lock this down." "What?" Leo asked. "A face," Holler said. "A hand with that scar tied to a name. The moment I have that, the rest of this stops being a story and starts being a case." Wren felt the hook of the moment catch in her chest. She pictured the still frame they had paused a dozen times. The black glove, the scar, the meat mid-arc. "We'll find him," she said. Her voice surprised her. Calm, almost quiet. "You'll have your face." As they left Holler's office, the clouds broke. A narrow bar of sunlight slipped under and lit the courthouse steps in a pale gold. Wren paused and let it warm her cheek. Across the square, a white SUV slid past with windows tinted dark. In the instant before the car vanished, she thought she saw a familiar profile tilt just enough to glance their way. A too smooth jawline, a clean cuff. She didn't tell Leo. Not yet. She let the door close behind them and held the binder against her chest like a shield. Back home, the garden looked the same and not the same, like a room after someone had moved one object an inch and dared you to name which one. The patched brick held. The culvert seal set hard. The cameras blinked red like small eyes. The baby woke and laughed, and for a few minutes the house felt almost ordinary. Then, as evening settled and the ash tree's shadow lay long across the grass, Wren stepped onto the porch and heard it again. 3 short whistles, 2 long. The sound floated light as thistleseed over the fence. Only this time, another sound followed it, close and unmistakable. The click of a phone camera taking a picture. Wren's skin prickled. She turned toward the corner and spoke into the air, voice level. "We see you." The night did not answer. But for the first time since this began, she did not feel like prey. She felt like a witness gathering light. Sheriff Holler called before dawn. "Meet me at the line by the stables." Wren and Leo drove through mist so thick it looked like smoke. Holler waited, flashlight beam slicing through fog. "Culvert's sealed, but footprints run from Vale's pasture to your hedge," he said. "Fresh, size 10 boots. Whoever's using that route didn't stop when you closed it." Wren's skin prickled. "Then they're desperate." Leo glanced at the field beyond. Or confident. They followed Holler to the fence. Near the base, he pointed to a torn scrap of black leather with a faint white scar mark at the seam. The same hand from the video. "This is our proof," Holler said. "Now we make them show their face." He looked at Wren. "You up for baiting them again?" She nodded, heart hammering. "If they think I'm scared, they'll come. Let's make sure the camera's rolling." The night was too still. Wren sat by the baby's crib, the monitor glowing faint blue, when Leo's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "She's not safe in there!" Before Wren could speak, the motion alarm blared. Outside, the garden camera caught movement. A man slipping through the hedge, gasoline can in hand. "Get the baby!" Leo shouted, sprinting for the door. Wren grabbed her daughter, heart hammering. The intruder, Holt Varner, Bernice's groom, splashed fuel along the shed. The air reeked of fumes. Flame bloomed. Smoke rolled thick as fog. Wren coughed, clutching her child, backing toward the far wall. Then, crashing through the culvert, came a shape she knew by sound alone. Rufus. He lunged through fire, grabbed a burning drop cloth, dragging it clear of the door. Sirens wailed close now. Holt ran. Rufus stayed, shielding Wren and the baby until help reached them. Flames clawed at the shed walls as Wren stumbled into the yard, coughing through smoke. Leo reached her, grabbing the baby, his shirt streaked with soot. Rufus collapsed near them, singed but alive, eyes blinking slow. Sirens wailed closer, red lights flickering across the fence. Sheriff Holler's truck skidded into the drive. Deputies poured out, tackling Holt Varner as he tried to flee toward the pasture. "Get the paramedics!" Holler barked. Wren knelt beside Rufus, pressing her forehead to his. "You saved us again," she whispered. The fire roared behind them, dying as dawn broke. The next morning, peace didn't last. A courier arrived with court papers. Emergency guardianship petition. Bernice Vale vs. Wren Pike. The words blurred as Wren read them. "She's using the fire," Leo said bitterly, "claiming neglect." Sheriff Holler called minutes later. "Hold tight. The DA's already reviewing Crane's connection. Don't panic." But Wren couldn't breathe. Her child, nearly stolen, now dangled in legal crosshairs. She gathered every file, every photo, and whispered, "No one takes her from me." Leo met her eyes. "Then we fight them where it counts." And this time, they would not run. Rain hammered against the windows as Wren spread papers across the table, turning her kitchen into a war room. Every sheet, every timestamp, every labeled photo, they were pieces of truth waiting to be stitched together. Leo sat opposite her, shoulders hunched, eyes burning from lack of sleep. "If they want to fight in court," he said, "we give them evidence that bites back." They worked methodically. The wall footage went first, Rufus protecting the baby, the falling brick, the laser dot, the gloved hand. Then came the sedative reports from Dr. Everhart, each labeled with chain of custody notes that proved the poison came from veterinary supplies only Crane could access. Next, the whistle recordings. Eliezer had amplified them, overlaying timestamps that matched perfectly with Bernice's stable schedule. The sound wasn't random. It was command and response. "This," Wren said, tapping the waveform printout, "is how they coordinated. They whistled to test Rufus's obedience. When he didn't react, they knew he was gone." Leo nodded grimly. "That's premeditation." When Eliezer arrived, he brought the final link, a spreadsheet showing matching dates between Bernice's HOA complaints and the anonymous CPS reports. "They were filed within an hour of each other every time," he said. "Same IP range on the emails. They used the HOA computer." Wren's jaw tightened. "She used her position to destroy us." Eliezer spread another document, a copy of Crane's foundation ledger. "And he paid her back with influence. His foundation funnels funds from the Vale Trust. The timing of those transfers matches your adoption date." The room fell silent. The baby monitor blinked in the background, steady as a heartbeat. Leo spoke first. "So they're not just guilty, they're coordinated." Wren leaned back, exhausted but clear-eyed. "Then we're coordinated too." She gathered the files into a thick binder, labeling the spine Evidence, Pike Family Defense. At dawn, they met Sheriff Holler at the courthouse. He flipped through the binder, whistling low. "You've built a cleaner case than half my deputies," he said. "This isn't just enough, it's airtight." He looked at Wren. "Once this hits the judge, Bernice and Crane won't know what's coming." For the first time in weeks, Wren smiled, not from joy, but from resolve. Let them find out the hard way. As Holler walked into the courthouse with their evidence, Wren felt the weight shift. For so long they'd been prey, running from shadows. Now the truth was on paper, measured, dated, undeniable. She took Leo's hand and whispered, "We're not scared anymore." He squeezed back. "No," he said. "Now it's their turn." The courthouse in Pine Hollow wasn't grand. Its paint had faded decades ago, and the brass door handles bore the shine of 1,000 nervous hands. Yet that morning, as Wren Pike stepped through those doors clutching a thick binder of evidence, it felt like the threshold between the hunted and the free. Leo walked beside her, jaw tight, shirt collar pressed to the point of discomfort. Sheriff Haller met them at the entrance, hat under his arm, eyes steady. "Stay calm," he said. "Truth's enough if you hold your ground." Wren nodded. Her palms were slick. Inside the courtroom, the air felt too still, thick with perfume, paper, and judgment. Bernice Vale sat at the plaintiff's table, back straight, pearls gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Her lawyer, a sleek man with a permanent smirk, whispered something that made her lips twitch into a cruel smile. Beside them, Dr. Lowell Crane radiated false calm, his silver watch catching the light with each movement. The judge, a tired man with a clipped mustache, entered. The gavel struck once. "We're here on the matter of guardianship petition number 142B, Ms. Bernice Vale versus Mr. and Mrs. Leo Pike." The sound of the case title alone made Wren's pulse throb in her ears. Bernice's attorney rose first. His voice was honey and poison. "Your Honor, my client comes before you only out of concern for a child's welfare. The defendant's home has become a place of chaos. Fires, police visits, an unstable animal, conditions no child should endure." Wren's nails bit into her palms. She wanted to shout that it was Bernice's chaos, Bernice's poison, but she stayed still. Leo's hand found hers under the table, a silent promise. "Wait." The attorney continued, his words a dagger wrapped in politeness. "We have sworn statements attesting to erratic behavior, a history of anxiety, and evidence suggesting the mother's inability to ensure the safety of her child." He paused for dramatic effect, letting the room absorb the lie. "My client is the child's biological grandmother. She only wishes to protect her family." The judge's gaze shifted to Wren, cool and unreadable. "Mrs. Pike, you'll have your chance to respond." When the lawyer sat down, Bernice's face was composed serenity, the kind that made Wren want to break something. Sheriff Haller stood next, his badge gleaming. "Your Honor, if I may." The judge nodded. Haller opened a folder and spoke with deliberate calm. "I conducted the investigation surrounding the alleged neglect. What I found instead was systematic harassment directed at the Pike family, false complaints, vandalism, and evidence tampering." He gestured toward the display monitor, where Leo queued up the garden footage. The video played. The courtroom fell silent. The brick dropped, Rufus lunged, and the red laser dot danced across the baby's blanket. When the gloved hand appeared tossing the poisoned meat, a low murmur rippled through the spectators. Bernice's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! This footage lacks context." "Overruled," the judge said without hesitation. "Continue, Sheriff." Haller nodded. "This family didn't endanger their child. They protected her, at risk to themselves." Next came Dr. Lyle Everhart. The veterinarian adjusted his glasses and spoke with the patience of a man who trusted facts. "The sedative found in the bait match is acepromazine, a controlled veterinary drug. Only licensed practitioners with specific authorization can purchase it. The batch number corresponds to a shipment ordered by Dr. Lowell Crane's Pediatric Foundation last quarter." The courtroom went deathly quiet. Dr. Crane's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "Care to comment, Doctor?" the judge asked. Crane gave a small, dry laugh. "That's absurd. My foundation provides emotional support animals for therapy programs. That medication was meant for training purposes." Everhart didn't blink. "Then perhaps you can explain why the dosage matches that required to immobilize a 70-pound canine within minutes." The tension in the room thickened. The judge scribbled something on his pad. Next, Eliezer Brandt took the stand. In his calm, clipped voice, he presented his findings. Emails from the HOA server showing Bernice's access times matched CPS complaint submissions, timestamps lining up perfectly with the dog's impoundment order. Every time Bernice Vale filed an HOA violation, an anonymous CPS complaint appeared within the same hour, he said. Same IP origin, same metadata. Bernice's composure cracked, just a flicker, but enough to show she'd felt the hit. Eliezer continued. Furthermore, the Vale Family Trust transferred $50,000 to Dr. Crane's foundation during the same week the Pikes' adoption paperwork was finalized. Another transfer occurred the week before the CPS complaint. The attorney sputtered. Speculative connections? Documented, Eliezer said, dropping copies into evidence. And pattern consistent. That's not speculation. It's coordination. The judge leaned forward. Are you implying collusion between Ms. Vale and Dr. Crane? I'm stating it, Eliezer said evenly. Crane's face lost color. Bernice whispered to her lawyer, but her voice was too sharp to disguise. Finally, Wren stood. The courtroom seemed to shrink around her. She held no notes, only her binder, her truth, bound and ready. My husband and I built our home from the ground up, she said softly. We adopted our daughter because we had love to give. We wanted peace, and someone who already had everything, decided that wasn't enough. Her voice trembled once, then steadied. That dog they call dangerous, he's the reason my child is alive. Those fires and complaints they wave around, all of them started with the people who stand before you pretending to be victims. She looked at Bernice directly. You tried to take what wasn't yours, and when you couldn't, you tried to destroy us. But you forgot something. You forgot that truth leaves tracks. The judge watched her for a long moment. You may sit, Mrs. Pike. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of finality. This court finds insufficient evidence to support the petition. Guardianship remains with the Pikes. Additionally, the court refers the matter of falsified reports and interference with law enforcement to the district attorney's office for criminal review. Bernice gasped. Crane's pen clattered to the floor. Holler rose. Dr. Crane, you're under arrest for conspiracy, falsifying records, and endangering a child. Two deputies moved forward. Crane's facade shattered, his face twisted, a man caught in the ruin of his own arrogance. Bernice lunged to her feet. You can't do this! That's my granddaughter! The judge's gavel struck hard. Sit down, Ms. Vale, or I'll have you removed. She froze. Wren exhaled, her breath shaking but free. Leo reached for her hand, and for the first time in weeks, his grip wasn't just protective. It was victorious. As the deputies led Crane away, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Wren closed her eyes for a second and let the sound wash over her. It wasn't noise. It was the echo of justice finally finding its voice. When they stepped outside, the sun broke through gray clouds, warm and gold. The courthouse doors shut behind them with a heavy, satisfying thud. Leo smiled faintly. It's over, he said. Wren shook her head, watching the horizon. No, she said quietly. It's just beginning, the part where we live without fear. And for the first time in a long while, she believed it. The week after the verdict unfolded like a slow sunrise after a long black night. Every morning, light crept farther into corners that had once held fear. The walls of the Pike house no longer seemed to listen. The garden, burned and scarred, began to smell like green again. On Monday, Sheriff Holler's truck rolled up the drive. In the back stood Rufus, proud and alert, tail beating slow against the tailgate. Wren didn't wait for the gate to open fully. She ran barefoot across the yard, tears already blurring the edges of the world. When Rufus leapt down, he stumbled slightly, still healing, but wagged his tail as if he'd never left. Wren dropped to her knees in the wet grass, arms wrapping around his thick neck. He leaned into her, eyes soft and knowing. "You're home," she whispered. "You did it, boy. You saved us all." Leo came up behind her, his face cracked open with emotion he didn't bother to hide. "Welcome back, hero," he said hoarsely. Holler smiled faintly, his weathered face softening. "Dog's the bravest thing I've seen in 30 years. The department wanted him to have this." He handed Leo a small silver tag shaped like a star, engraved with "For Valor, Pine Hollow County." Wren blinked back tears. "You're giving him a badge?" "Figured he earned it," Holler said. "If it weren't for him, this would be a much darker story." He hesitated before adding, "Crane confessed yesterday. Turned everything over to the DA. Said Bernice orchestrated the whole scheme. Every complaint, every payoff, every whisper about your fitness as parents." Leo's fists clenched. "He's just trying to save himself." "Maybe," Holler said, "but his confession nails her down. She won't see the outside of a prison yard for a long time." When he left, the three of them, Wren, Leo, and Rufus, stood in the quiet yard. Wind moved softly through the ash tree, carrying the scent of rain and cedar. For the first time in months, Wren didn't feel watched. Over the next days, the house filled again with warmth. Leo repaired the garden wall properly this time, adding steel rebar deep into the foundation. He worked slowly, deliberately, like every trowel of mortar was a promise. Wren planted wildflowers along the fence, their colors bright as hope. At night, she'd sit on the porch with the baby asleep, on her lap, listening to the rhythmic hum of crickets. Leo would join her, a mug of coffee cooling between his palms. They didn't need to talk much. Survival had carved a language between them, made of quiet glances and shared breath. "Do you think it's really over?" Leo asked one night, watching lightning bugs drift like sparks through the grass. Wren thought for a moment. "Over?" she said softly. "No, but we're standing where it started, and we're not afraid anymore." He smiled, tracing her fingers. "You were the strong one." She shook her head. "No, I just refuse to quit. That's different." Rufus stretched nearby, groaning contentedly. For once, even he seemed at peace. A week later, the district attorney called. Bernice Vale had pled guilty. 3 counts of conspiracy, 1 of attempted abduction, 1 of child endangerment. She'd agreed to forfeit her estate to settle fines and legal fees. Crane's license had been revoked, and his assets seized for restitution. When Wren hung up, she found Leo in the garden, kneeling by the patch of new grass where the shed had burned. She told him the news, voice trembling. "It's done. Completely done." He sat back on his heels, head bowed. "Then we can finally breathe." Wren knelt beside him and pressed her forehead to his. "We already are." That weekend, they held a small dinner. Nothing fancy, just those who had stood beside them when no one else would. Sheriff Holler, Eliezer Brandt, and Dr. Everhart filled the kitchen with laughter and the smell of roasted chicken. The baby sat in her high chair, banging a spoon against the tray, and Rufus lay at her feet like a sentry finally off duty. Holler raised a glass. "To courage," he said, "and to families who don't bend when evil leans too hard." Eliezer smirked. "And to dogs that put most men to shame." Dr. Everhart chuckled. "Don't forget the mother who kept her head when the rest of us were losing ours." Wren blushed, but her smile was steady. "To all of us," she said, "because none of this was done alone." They clinked glasses. For the first time, the sound wasn't brittle. It was warm, like a bell rung in celebration rather than warning. Later that night, when everyone had gone home, Wren stood at the window, watching the moon lay its silver light across the yard. The repaired wall cast a straight shadow, solid and whole again. Beyond it, the stables were dark. The world that had tried to swallow them had fallen silent. She stepped outside, barefoot in the cool grass. Rufus followed, head brushing her hip. She looked down at him, smiling. "You're not just a dog," she whispered. "You're a miracle with paws." He tilted his head as if to agree, tail sweeping lazily. Inside, Leo was rocking the baby, humming an old tune that had become their lullaby. Wren watched them through the window, a picture of everything she'd almost lost. Her chest ached with gratitude, so fierce it felt like prayer. She turned her eyes to the horizon. The stars above Pine Hollow shimmered with new clarity, and somewhere deep inside her, the fear that had once ruled her life simply let go. She whispered to the wind, "We're home." And the night, gentle and endless, whispered back, "Thanks for watching. If any part of this story lingered with you, consider subscribing. I'll be here again tomorrow, sharing another tale that speaks to the soul."